Hey there, Chantoey fam. So happy to have you again for another episode, part 3 of the Florida series, where Chantoey visit Florida. And I'm so excited about this next location. We are going to a place called Morikami Museum and Japanese Gardens. And we're super excited to find this place. We originally planned a vacation where we were just gonna go see waterfalls in Florida. And then we realized the waterfalls were very small or, one way or another. But we did find this particular location as one of the waterfalls that they recommend in Florida, which was just a small joy in the grand scheme of this place. This place is located in Delray Beach, Florida, and I highly recommend, if you've got a few hours to drive out that way, to make your way there. It's a beautiful garden to visit. We spent an entire day there. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Joey take over and really tell you about our visit there. And at the end, I will fill you in on some special surprises that we got to encounter while we're there. So enjoy!
Morikami is actually a different type of botanical gardens in that where other botanical gardens might be a place where you go and you have all the plants labeled and everything for you to look at. Morikami does something a little bit different where it's more of an experience that you're getting into, that you're looking around and you're seeing a lot more of the different designs and the culture. Morikami is a garden that's made for you to experience and just to be in the moment there. And so you'll see how it's designed, that there are many different aspects that make you stop and just take in what you're seeing right there instead of running through it. One of the things that it offers is this walking tour where you can visit the website that they have for you to look at each of the different zones as you're walking through the different historical gardens here. So that really helped us be able to know what we were actually seeing. So at the beginning of the walking tour, it starts you off with this wisdom ring, which is really cool. It's a replica of the one that's in Miyazu, which is actually the sister city of this place. And one of the things that the wisdom ring was used for was as a lantern, as a sort of kind of like lighthouse guiding for nearby sailors to go through. So they would put a light in the middle of the ring and then just cover it with paper on both sides there. That kind of marks kind of as the beginning of your journey, your guide, if you will, into what will be the next parts of your tour. And so that brings me to the first bridge that you get to, which is actually pretty interesting. So it was donated by Commander Woodruff for a couple reasons. One was because he was actually an officer in World War II during the attacks on Pearl Harbor. He was actually there, and so much of after that he had this bad perception of the Japanese. So after the events of World War II and much time afterwards, he started to begin to renew his love for the Japanese people, to remove that hate that he had, to the extent that he and his wife both donated to this bridge. And so it's kind of a mission statement and kind of a metaphor of what the park represents. It's the bridging of two cultures together, despite anything from the past. And so that's really the cool thing I think that this experience is that you see a lot of Japanese culture being bridged and shown. So Morikami is actually made out of 6 different gardens for 6 different historical parts of Japanese history. The first garden that you get to after the bridge is the Shinden Garden, and that's going to be somewhere around the 800 to 1100s, and that is going to kind of represent a garden that a Japanese noble might have had, basically based off of the Chinese and their gardens. These gardens in particular, although they are great just walking through it, they actually are meant to be viewed by a boat and to see the view through that. So very interesting, just kind of start of the gardens there. So this was a nice place for us to walk around first. It was nice and huge, and being able to, this is where we got to sit down as well, since we can't obviously get in a boat there. The next thing before you actually get to the next set of gardens is actually the gate that you're met with. There's 2 gates. There's the one that leads you into the next garden, and then there's the one that is at the end after you've gone through all 6 of the gardens there. So this first one is actually called the Kodai Mon Gate. This means ancient gate, but this would have been built with inspiration for what a noble samurai might have had when they during the Edo period. So this would have been what they would have had it modeled off after. When you go in through here, you're actually going to go into the new transition to the new garden, which is going to be called the Paradise Gardens. And this one's actually a garden that's meant to be strolled through, and it's kind of like a paradise on earth is the idea for it. So this would have been around the 12th, 14th century of Japan during this time, and so again, nice stroll through here. The next garden that you're met with is going to be the early rock gardens. This one inspired by Chinese landscape paintings. These are going to use plants and different rocks to kind of demonstrate water going off like a cliff or a peak into a lake or the sea there. The next one will take on just a little bit afterwards, after the 14th century or so, and that's going to be the late rock gardens. This is where we start to see them getting rid of the plants and actually just using some boulders and then the different paths that you see that are being raked with the gravel there to exemplify to represent the water and such. So a little bit more minimalistic and emphasis on this the artistic style of it, instead of having all the plants and stuff. It's mostly just the rocks that you see there. The 5th garden is actually going to be around the 18th century. This one's going to bring back the plants. You're going to see a lot more of them in the landscape, but they're also going to use different borrowed objects, borrowed landscapes in the actual garden with the rocks, as well as the different things that you see in the landscape afterwards, different little towers or trees, sometimes even a lantern you might see used. So it changes a little bit of what you get to see, just based on the perspective. We first saw it in the front, and then we actually went off to the side and got to see a whole different part of the garden, just by changing your perspective just a little bit there. So our 6th garden is actually going to take place during the later half of the 19th century. It's when Japan actually starts to let the West enter its country, so it's no longer isolated as it was. and we'll see these ideas start to influence this type of garden. So this is called the modern romantic garden. From here, this is actually where we see not only many different plants, we're seeing a call back to nature. So not so much the abstract rock gardens that you saw in the other gardens, but you'll also see a lot more streams, water. So this was actually a favorite garden of mine just because you got to hear the sounds, and there's a lot of, again, call back to nature in that. So we see the Japanese starting to play more with those ideas. So that'll take us to the last gate at the end there. This is called the South Gate. It's also what brings us back into kind of the more park-like areas of Morikami. There's still plenty of things that it offers. There is the Yamato Island, which houses not only the original spot that the museum was at for Morikami, but then you also see their collection of bonsai trees and all the different types that they have there in the house. One of the cool things about going to that museum is that there are a couple documentaries that tell the story of the Yamato colony, as well as the founder himself, George Morikami, and which the park is named after. You get to hear not only their story of how they first came to America in the early 1900s to make money to be able to come back a few years later back to Japan. Much like that American dream mindset of people who came to America, but also it tells what their story of what they experienced here. They were farmers. They also were people who they didn't get to go back to Japan. They ended up staying there and for the rest of their life, sort of. And so they we'll see with George Morikami himself, he actually buys up quite a bit of land in this area, up to 200 acres, to which he ends up donating this back to the city, back in the 70s, which then becomes what we see today as Morikami Park. So this is all because of him, as far as being able to show that story. And it's not just their story, but it's also a part of our story and how we have immigrants coming and their experience in America. So it all goes together on how we all relate there. So on the island itself, you'll see that they have many different bonsais that are in their collection that you can see. They all have different styles. The word bonsai itself just means a tree in a tray, which is interesting because a lot of times there might be a misconception that although a tree that is outside of a tray and then it's trimmed up artistically and taken care of and trained might resemble a bonsai tree, but in fact because it's removed, doesn't have that container, then technically it's not a bonsai tree. You need both for it to be a bonsai tree. And so very interesting because there's not a certain type of tree you need to have. You just need to be able to train it in a certain way with the wires and different ways that you cut it back and such to train it. Going around here is also where we found many different koi fish or carp. The carp itself are actually donated by either members of the Morikami Park, or they're donated by this koi enthusiast and they offer them here. There are a couple of waterfalls that are on the island and near the end, and looking out into one of the waterfalls, you actually see that there is a island that they made look like a turtle. They call it Turtle Island, which is interesting because a lot of times in Japanese gardens you might see some sort of turtle created in the garden there. Turtles themselves are said to have lived 10,000 up to 10,000 years in Eastern Asian folklore. And so you also see those sometimes paired with the crane, especially in Asian paintings, because they are both live such long lives, are said to have, with up to 10,000 years for a turtle and 1,000 years for the crane. So this idea of prosperity and long life is usually given to those two animals there. And so one of the reasons why we even went on to this park, to Morikami, or even knew about it, was because we were looking for different waterfalls throughout Florida, and this happened to pop up. So near the end there was where we get the bigger waterfall that kind of set us off into this idea, or even knowing about Morikami. And so it was a great experience for many reasons, because not only we got to see the waterfall that we were initially looking for, but also because we were already at the time knowing we were going to Japan, and we were now in a place where we got to experience Japanese culture in America, in Florida. And so that was a great time there as well. There are actually 3 memorial markers in the garden. They are for George Morikami, as well as 2 of the founders of the original Yamato colony that George actually went to when he came to America and worked on that farm. Both that was for them to be able to, the colony itself was made so that they could one, be able to farm and raise money, but also to have a community, a Japanese community in the area there. So the colony itself usually had about 10 to 30 people at any given time. So small community, but they would go back and forth between Japan and the colony as they were getting money for them. One of the things to kind of make note is, as we were going through, you'll see there are different lanterns, there were different plaques that were donated to the actual garden itself, and these were members that have been around for a while. One of the members that we actually met was someone who came up to us and offered a private tour of the place. She even has a bonsai tree that she has specially put off to the side that lives in the park itself as well. So she gave us a lot more information than what we already were experiencing as we were going through the tour, so it just enriched the whole experience, and we made a great friend out of it. Back at the beginning of the actual museum, you also have different exhibits that happen year round. During that time, we had the jeweler that was showing off her pieces. There is an area in there that they have staged for a tea ceremony that you can experience and watch during certain times of the day or certain times of the year as well. And there's also a theater that shows the actual story of George Morikami, his life, and what led to eventually the land that we see today being turned into Morikami Park. And so great experiences to get either at the beginning, or for us, we did this at the end of our tour. At the end of the exhibit hall, there's actually a area where you can tell your story, either wishes for the future or things that represent you that you put on paper. So we put our own there and added it to the wall as well. And so overall it was a great day. Highly recommend if you are someone who is both either fascinated with nature or Japanese culture in any way, you just happen to be down in that area. Definitely something you totally don't want to miss. One of the cool things was you can go in and out of the park for the day pass and all to get in. So we actually went back to our van around lunchtime and had a little bit of lunch, took a little break from walking around before we went back in and experienced more of the park. So that was a great thing for us, especially because that place got very popular as far as parking. So it was great to just pop into the van, eat our food, and all, not have to go anywhere and then go back in. Although they do have food at the place, they have a little cafe where you can get actual food or snacks and stuff too.
Well, thanks for watching that video to the end. We hope you loved it as much as we enjoyed going there and shooting the video. And also, Joey did a great job at just kind of bringing some facts out to you. It's a really neat place. So again, if you ever get a chance to hit that area, please go. It's wonderful. And I want to give a very special thanks to our friend Marsha. She was amazing, and it was such a beautiful opportunity to meet her. And just a little background information, we met her by just minding our own business. We were kind of just sitting peacefully enjoying one of the rock gardens, and she came and sat next to me, and we kind of exchanged a little hello, and it just took off from there. We were so blessed to meet her. Marsha is someone who gives private tours of this particular park. And after just talking for a short few minutes, she offered a private tour to us, which was so unexpected, but so amazing. And I wish I could have given you more of the tour that we had with Marsha, but unfortunately the video and the sound just didn't pan out. We weren't prepared, but that is totally okay. Go for yourself. Go visit Marsha and have her take you around. It was so lovely to see the park through her eyes, and especially with her involvement in the park. It was literally a perfect experience in that I was taking photos and like falling in love with certain items that her and her family like contributed. Yeah. So it was just, before we met her, we were already connecting. It was really nice to spend time with her, get to know her, get to meet her, and just kind of expand our options in getting to know people from all over the place and from all different walks of life. So if you're not already doing it, get out there, talk to strangers, meet people, have some fun, and we hope you like this video. So take care.
You're gonna tell them to go talk to strangers?
Yeah, talk to strangers.
There are students and kids.
If you're 18 and older, talk to strangers.
Okay. Maybe. That's fair.
Okay.